ready to go We're live, I think.
Pebble Beach, big guy.
Is that on right now?
No, it's getting ready to come on.
What time's it going on?
It goes on, I believe, at noon.
So,
Have you ever played it?
no.
Well, I gotta take care of you. No, it comes on at 1.
All right. Well, what we should do then is, all right, so it's you and me, and I'm running the board, so I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. But watch
All
this.
right.
Watch this, Scott. I could do a banner, right?
Okay.
Let me see. We are live. Watch this. Add banner. Scroll across the bottom. See, we are live. See that?
Yeah, I see it.
How about that, huh?
Big time.
I know what the hell I'm doing.
Apparently.
I'm being told by a bunch of people now texting me we are live. So there you go.
I'm getting text too.
All right, so we have a week to the Super Bowl, right?
Yep.
What are teams doing this weekend? The two teams, Kansas City and Philadelphia. I know I was just down in the Senior Bowl. All the scouts are down there, but Philadelphia and Kansas City weren't down there. What are they doing?
From the personnel standpoint or a player standpoint?
Both.
Personnel wise, I know when I was with Green Bay and I was with Seattle when we were still playing, and it's always been the week after the Super Bowl's the week after the Senior Bowl. We would always show up as area scouts. Now, GMs and senior personnel directors and that kind of stuff could be different. Each team's their own way. As a GM, if I was able to play in a Super Bowl, I would stay with my team. Just because you got transactions, you got injuries, you got practice, they give them time off, the week after, because it's a 2-week span. But I'd always want to be with my team and the coaches, always. Now,
I will tell you this, though, going down to the Senior Bowl, right? The scouts you did see from Philadelphia or Kansas City, boy, they had the big balls. Everybody's, congratulations, da 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 da, right?
oh yeah, no, I've been through it, and it's like I appreciate it, but I really didn't do anything. The players are playing, the coaches are coaching.
But those are definitely the guys.
Win.
I can tell you, those are definitely the guys that were wearing their
gear.
Their gear. Oh my God! Look, I'm wearing my gear. I got my instinctive setting, right?
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha. The thing about it is, especially for the area scouts, and as you're well aware, every year you go down to the Senior Bowl or whatever All-Star game you go to or the Combine. These scouts are so young, and which is awesome because that's what I was young when I started. But do take pride in your team. Take pride in the fact that you are playing a Super Bowl because they're hard to come by. I've known guys that worked 30, 40 years in the NFL and never made a Super Bowl, ever.
No, there's definitely something to be said about that. And I'll tell you, being down to let's even just go to the Senior Bowl. What were your impressions of the Senior Bowl? I was down there. It didn't look like a lot of first-round picks, but definitely the second, third, and fourth round were well represented. There were some players, and this is what cracks me up. You try to, you tell guys you either go down there and make money or lose money. And there were some guys that went down there and lost some money. There were some guys that went down there. The 3 guys from Iowa State were interesting.
Well, the thing about it is, it's unique about any All-Star game, and I was taught this by Ron Wolf when I first got in the league. He says, All-Star games are cool. I want you there. I want you to see these players in person. Some you haven't seen, some you have, of course, from your area. He says, but an All-Star game never changes a grade for the negative. It's only for the positive.
What do you mean by that?
He just said, don't let some of these cats haven't played for a month, 6 weeks. They haven't had pads on. They haven't been playing football. They've been training, and Ron was always, go with your fall grade. Now if you see a guy that you saw maybe mid-season that all of a sudden shows you more athleticism than you thought, or had a really good week and showed that he could be a leader, that he could be competitive, that he dominated certain guys that are good players, then that you can bump a grade up. Don't do it on paper, but we'll do it in person when we have draft meetings. He
I,
says he said
I,
never let an all-star game affect a grade in a negative manner ever.
it was interesting. So we're there at the Senior Bowl, and I'll sort of paint the scene. You have practice. We're sitting in the stands, whether it was with the scouts or whoever, and then all of a sudden they go to the one-on-ones. And boy, you've never seen more grown men get excited in one place and at a strip club. I mean, all of a sudden it's like the place gets quiet. Everybody's there. The problem was that down at the Senior Bowl this year, they were doing the one-on-ones, quarterbacks, receivers, running backs, DBs on one side, offensive linemen
Yep.
in the
D-line.
bullpen on the other side, and
Yep.
your head's like this the whole time.
No, partner, I lived it, done it. I'll never forget. I went down on the field one time. I always wanted to sit in the stands, as you're well aware. I wanted to get a higher version. I want like you did. I want to see both going on, and it's tough. They should split that up. They should, honestly. But you still get tape for it and all that, practice tape and all that. But I'll never forget. I went down on the field one time. There's O-line, D-line, and I was standing next to Mean Joe Green. And one of the coaches came over and says, "You got to back up. You got to be behind the line." And me, Joe Green says, "You don't ever tell me that again."
No, not when it comes to defense line.
I ain't backing up.
I had the privilege this week, and I'll see if I could get the video or a picture of watching the quarterbacks with Doug Williams.
Cool.
Yeah, real cool. So Doug and I were just sitting there watching quarterbacks, and you're listening. No, what he's saying about this, what he's saying about that, and
Yep.
if anybody knows what the quarterbacks are doing, it's definitely Doug Williams.
Oh yeah, 100%. No, I worked with Doug. You know that. Good guy.
And great guy, humble, the whole works. But
Big time.
to me, and I've got we have on our scouting computer, they already have the practices up, so
Yep.
we could watch them. I was watching them last night.
Yep.
But it is nice to see the quarterbacks live. I wanted to see the zip of the arm, the accuracy,
Well,
the touch.
you know what? Honestly, Peter, from my standpoint, and doing this for a while, I always want to see him live. I'm a much better scout when I see not just quarterbacks, and that's very important, but corners with twitch. D linemen getting off the ball, O linemen competing and fighting, hand use, hand quickness. You know, it's just and then the thing that's really cool about the Senior Bowl and the East West and all the All Star games, you go through 3 days. I know it's short term, but you all of a sudden start realizing who's the leaders, who's the ones that are lining people up, who's the ones the coaches trust.
Right.
The thing that's great about the Senior Bowl, for many years, it's coached by NFL coaches, so they don't play around. I mean, they know what they have at their place. They know who's successful and who's not successful. But if you can see some leadership and feel it, I think that's very, very important.
Well, there's no doubt about that. I'll tell you though, the quarterback. So the Oregon quarterback was interesting. Really, sort of diminutive, not as tall as you thought, but he'd get out there. You could see he had command, he had leadership. You could see why he's thrown for so many yards in college.
Yep.
You worry about the size a little.
Yeah, you do. But again, the thing that's cool about him is not just the fact he's played a lot of football, he's got a lot of wins, and I think that's so important with quarterbacks.
Oh, he's got a lot of wins.
Yeah, and I think that's so important. The thing is, what makes him any different than Tua? Besides he has more wins.
I think just watching him, I didn't know if he was as big as Tua. Is all I'm saying.
Close. He's close. It's not much off. We took Russell Wilson in Seattle. Everybody said, "What are you doing? He's a midget. He's too short to play in the NFL." We went back-to-back Super Bowls. Won one, lost one, but we went back-to-back. And not saying he's Russell special. When I was with him, his mentality, his leadership, his intelligence, his understanding of the game, his ability to avoid rushes.
It looked like this. It looked like the Oregon quarterback had that. I could tell you. Of course, I don't know shit from Showa, but he definitely looked like he had command and presence.
He's going to be in the NFL. I'm not saying he's going to be a starter year one like Russell was, but he's going to be in the NFL, and he's going to be a backup for a while. Hopefully, become a starter for him, because I saw a couple interviews with him on TV, and he was phenomenal,
Yeah,
phenomenal.
he definitely looked. He definitely looked that part. And I'll tell you, it is interesting to watch the D lines. The coaches had um, the coaches at the end of each practice. They had
I
sort of a
saw it.
setup
No, it
where
was cool.
it was
It was cool.
Texas A&M versus LSU.
It was cool. No. You know what? I wish we had done that earlier when I was still rolling. When I was down there, it's that, but that's competition. And that's what you look for. And it doesn't mean, if it's one on one, O line, D line should win. If it's one on one, receiver, corner,
Oh, the
the
DBs
receiver
have
should win.
the DBs have no chance.
Well, what about the poor linebackers and running backs?
Oh my God.
I mean, come on, but still, it's cool to see him compete, and see the players get excited, and, they start talking to each other. And
I've got a safety down there from Oklahoma State, and the first one-on-one he had to do the other day was against a little Oregon receiver. I'm like,
yes,
really?
yeah, that's
Come
not
on.
legal. That's not legal.
What are
You
we
can't,
doing?
you can't win. I mean, if you do, it's pure luck.
I'm calling up right now at the college all-star game film, but I'm like, wow, you're putting a safety against a 5'8", 4'3", 40
Correct.
twitchy receiver. No, that would never
Correct.
happen in the league.
And the guy might be 4'2", to tell you the truth.
Oh, he looked quick he looked quick. Oh, he was quick.
He's got big time track times coming out of high school, big time. I mean, flying. But yeah, but still, it's not so much who wins and loses. It's just the competition. You know, it's not
Who
just the
stood
individual.
out to you? Who stood out to you?
Well, there are quite a few. I think O line wise, the gift North Dakota State. I mean, he looks like he's got versatility. He's probably end up being a guard when it's said and done. But he didn't embarrass himself at tackle at all. You
He also had
know,
some toughness to him.
yeah, no, you could tell, and he's got some squareness. He's got good enough feet to mirror and and play square, and he's got good technique, good hand use. I'm telling you, that North Dakota State coaching staff every year does a phenomenal job, and that's why they're in the national championship every year. On that level, because they're disciplined, their technique sound, and they're just no nonsense. Which I think is awesome. I'm not saying he's gonna come in and be Pro Bowler and all that kind of stuff,
Oh
but
no, he's good. He's going to the start. He
you
was
know.
that good. He was, I was telling you earlier that there was a guard from North Carolina, 5'10" and a half, I think.
Yeah.
5'10" and a half, 275. And I'll tell you, he was as tough as a $3 steak.
No, that's fine. You can be tough as you want. You need size and length to play inside, bud. In the NFL.
He made up by being short by having short arms. But I'll tell you something, it was fun to watch because he
All
competed
right.
now.
That's why you gotta love college football. You see it all the time with small receivers, small quarterbacks, small running backs. You know,
We
they
were
just
thinking, we were
they light it up.
thinking maybe let him be a fullback, or I mean, because he looked definitely as a football player.
Yeah, but still, I mean, I got you. I hear you. I wasn't there, so I didn't really see him. I don't recall him at all, to tell you the truth, if he was 5'10" and a half. But yeah, but the NFL is not for everybody.
Scott, we had Stevie Sombrato, who's got his own podcast. Big Giant fan. We're talking Super Bowl preview. Steven Scott said to Steven, you remember he was on earlier in the
Yeah,
season.
how you doing, Scott?
Good. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Great.
I want to know, Steven, are we optimistic about the Giants right now?
Oh, we're terrified. I'm terrified. I'm actually terrified right now. I think, they're in a position where really they have to deliver now. Okay, they've moved. They've made the decision. Where, there was a lot of heat on the GM and the coach and all of that, and they moved past that decision and said, okay, we're sticking with it. That only adds to the pressure for those guys. I feel for those guys because there is a mounting sense of having to get every decision right now. I mean, you could second guess. Everybody loves to be the proverbial Monday morning quarterback and second guess all these things. And how many things on social media you're watching from Hard Knocks where the owner is talking about having nightmares of seeing Saquon on the Eagles, and then they're in the Super Bowl, and the son talking about moving up to draft Jaden Daniels, and he goes on to do the things that he goes. So you see this pressure that's probably mounting on this staff and the GM and coach to get some results this year. I mean, that's a lot of pressure, I would imagine.
Scott, what kind of pressure as a GM do you feel on that stuff?
You know what? You get pressure every year. It doesn't matter if you're winning or losing. If you're losing, you're trying to build a roster. You're trying to make free agency moves. You're winning. You're trying to repeat what you're doing. There's always stress there. The thing about Joe Shane, the GM, I know well. He's very, very, very good. It'd be hard to find one better than him. Now, the Saquon thing, was that a mistake? Sure. But that happens in free agency. We were able, when I was in Green Bay, to get Reggie White. Why would Philadelphia ever let go of Reggie White? And he came in and he was MVP of the defense, the first year with us. We ended up going to Super Bowl and two of them and win one, lose one, but whatever.
But Scott, so sometimes though players have a renaissance or play better, and had he gone back to New York, would he have been the same player? As he is in Philadelphia. Obviously, it was a great match for Philadelphia.
Sure. And well, the thing about it is they have a really good offensive line, and they got a quarterback that's definitely functional. Over the top, probably not, but still, you got to worry about him. But you get a good old line. I mean, it's not about one person. Now, Saquon, as you're well aware, that's why he got drafted where he got drafted coming out. He's a good football player. Now, yeah, he had a couple of injuries that hindered him, with the Giants. And as we say it all the time, like Andy Reid, sometimes change is good. He goes from the Eagles to the Chiefs, and all of a sudden now he's got a chance to be a 3-time winner 3 years in a row, but, no one has an answer for that. The thing about Saquon, he's still young, I mean, not far back, the average length of career is 3, maybe 4 years, whatever. But he's still got juice. He's got juice.
The one thing you say, and I agree with you. Obviously, the jobs these are pressure jobs. Yes. When you're in these positions. But when you look at the NFL in all of these jobs, these are all qualified people. These are all people that know football. You know what I mean? There's no dopes in this crew. There's nobody that maybe there's some that you might say, wow, this guy's really an elite. But these are all qualified people to get ultimately in these positions. That's why sometimes it really doesn't matter, because it's the political winds that blow when something is not going right. Even though I give the owner credit of the Giants, he decided to stick with them, and I think that's a fair decision to make, in spite of what fans might say or anything else. I give him credit for having the courage to do that, because there's probably owners that would just probably say, you know what, it's just easier to cut ties and get another guy in here, make everybody happy, start anew. So I do give them credit for that. I just hope that they're able to show that progression. Now you got a team really that doesn't have essentially a quarterback. They're going to have to do something to make something happen there.
All right, so Scott, how do you manufacture a quarterback short-term, long-term?
Well, if you go on short-term, you got to go in free agency. You got to go Sam Darnold or something like that, which isn't a bad option, but you have to identify one. And he nailed it right. All these coaches that we consider Hall of Fame coaches and good stuff like that, the Mike Holmgrens, the Andy Reids, stuff like that, they have quarterback. They have a quarterback, plain and simple, and
it's sort of like Pat Riley when he had LeBron and Shaq, and when he had those guys in Miami. He's a much better coach.
Yeah, but the thing about it is, I think the head coach and the GM with the Giants are really good at what they do. I really do. But you need a quarterback. You have to have a quarterback. I mean, and then I hate saying that because I'm all about team, 11 on 11 on 11, special teams, offense, defense. and you need good football players. But I think Joe, given the opportunity to be there for a length of time, which he's already shown with Neighbors, he's adding talent. I mean, he added a really good wide receiver. I mean, one of the top 5 probably in the league right now. It's amazing to say that after his rookie year, but the guy showed up. But and I know that the head coach has had success and been around success, but it's hard to manufacture wins, especially with the East and the teams they have to play. I mean, look what Washington's done. Cowboys always going to be a juggernaut. And you got Philly.
So
I
Scott,
mean,
you had this issue in Washington. Maybe you could tell a story about you inherited Robert Griffin, and
correct,
you had to make the call that time to bench him for some guy named Kirk Cousins.
correct.
So how did that process go down?
Well, just I walked in, eyes wide open. I had my ideas about because I know both of them from college. Of course, I evaluated them. I saw them play live, whatever. And I went in with my eyes wide open, and I know with Jay Gruden, who's the head coach, we sat and talked about it right away. And I'm like, listen, I'm not pulling for one or the other. I'm pulling for the best player and the best teammate and the best leadership in the locker room and on the field. You know, and it worked itself out that and RG3 was a really good player. Don't get me wrong, talented. No, he had the knee, that year against us playing, Seattle. We were there in the playoffs, and his knee was shot, and he lost his best attribute, which was movement skills. That's what he was living on. And then Kirk, he understood the position. He understood everything, and he was a leader. He was a tough guy, and he wouldn't back down. And it just, it's the same thing in training camp every year. There's certain positions that are up for grabs, and you're gonna need both of them eventually. Especially now with 17 games, maybe 18 games coming quick. But he won the job. And the same thing we did in Seattle when we signed Flynn and gave him good money from Green Bay, and then we drafted Russell,
Right.
and he came in, and Pete's like, the best man's going to win. We're 2 weeks into training camp, and it was done. It's competition, but we knew who was going to be our guy. So they're hard to find, the quarterbacks, especially coming out of college. I mean, you can see talent. You see the Zach Wilsons, you see that kind of stuff. And people always reach for them because they need it. And I think 6 of the top 9 teams or 10 teams this year need a quarterback. And the free agency market's not huge, and pro free agency. But there'll be 3 quarterbacks come out of this draft end up being good NFL football players. Matt Hasselbeck type guys, that aren't superstars, but you can win with. But you still got to keep adding to the pool, surround them, and the upfronts and very, very important.
Steve,
Very, very
who do
important.
the Giant fans want? Like in a perfect
I
world.
feel like there was this buzz around Sanders, and I feel like with the other guy from Miami, Ward, it almost seems like in a way you're at a roulette wheel, and you're told put your money down. You could pick black, or you could pick red, or God forbid it lands on green, and that's how it feels. Like I would ask Scott, like is it in their mind, is it almost a safer play to potentially go like with a more solid free agent type situation, maybe trade and pick up all the pieces? Because, rather than put your chips in one of those top draft picks, and if it doesn't work, that's really a disaster.
Well, the thing about it is what's ownership think? You know what I'm saying? You got 2-3 years? If not, if it's all of a sudden you got to win next year, no matter what, you got to go
I
free
think they
agent.
got to show. I think they got to show improvement next year. I think if they
Yeah.
come in another 3 and 14, I don't think that's going to work.
Well, the thing about it is, then from a personnel standpoint, like a GM standpoint, if you're drafting a quarterback early, you're drafting for the next coach. You know what I'm saying? Because it's few and far between. There's Jaden Daniels to go out there and do what they did. It's few and far between. It's tough, man. That position's
Because
really
also
hard.
they're picking third, and what you're saying is if you got to win, and you could take a elite pass rusher, elite left tackle, someone who can come in and dominate this year and help you win, that's going to be more impactful short term than long term.
I'd be looking to trade back and get more picks and just stockpile second, third, and fourth round picks and just add to the roster. But it's got to be on ownership too, because now you got to sign a pro free agent that's, not saying that Darnold's a stopgap guy, but still you're adding an older guy, that has some wear on us, and it's just, it all depends on the philosophy of the organization, from the GM to the ownership to the head coach. Like, listen, if we don't sign so and so and so and so in free agency, you're gonna have to pay him some money. How free agency works.
You're going to have
of
to, I'll
course.
tell you, from an agent's perspective, if I'm Sam Darnold and let's say the market's 35 million, right? He's
Yep.
not getting 55, but he's going to get Baker Mayfield or Kirk Cousins.
Correct.
And I've got some other teams that are quarterback needy. I'm telling you right now, you're going to have to overpay me to go to New York because that could be a career wrecker.
Well, but not necessarily. That's a good organization now. That's a good.
No, I'm talking about,
history.
one stop. Is that where you'd want to go if you're Sam Darnold and you have options?
Well, I know this. You got neighbors out there running X. You got a chance to have success real quick, because he ain't going nowhere. I mean, the guy's just starting his career, and he's a baller. But I get what you're saying, and and that's the agent standpoint, personnel standpoint. I'll try to sign. If I know I could trade back from 3 and pick up, 3 more picks, 4 more picks, because now you got leverage because they're coming to get the quarterback, probably. Build a roster, but everybody's got to be on the same page. Everybody's got to be on the same page because
Right. So isn't that part of the factor? You got fans like Steve and the Giant fans are going to win, 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 win. And then you've got Dayball, who, whether he says it or not, he has to show improvement, to quote Steven. And are you really going to be in a position where you're going to be developing a young quarterback? Or those coaches thinking, no, I'm not trying to fatten frogs for snakes.
Correct.
Right? Because then when you look at the veteran quarterbacks that are in free agency this year, really none of them, you got Darnold, Justin Fields. You could bring him in to compete, but he's not a guaranteed starter, is he? Right? Russell Wilson, 36 years old. You can bring him in? What would the New York fans think about Russell Wilson?
I don't think that's going to work. I think too old. I don't think that would work.
Jameis Winston hit two or three nice games, and then boy, he crashed.
That ain't work either.
Mac Jones, Scott, you like Mac coming out a little?
Little, not where he went. I had a 3rd round grade on him, but I mean, he's one of those. Yeah, in my opinion, he's a perennial backup, and that's just my opinion. I could be completely wrong, but he's smart. He's got good size. He's a good guy. He's a good teammate. He's going to do everything right. But he's not a frontline guy. I mean, you're not going to win with him.
I mean, is the Darnold situation that he ended up in a very good situation in Minnesota, and that's like, okay, your play improved. With the Jets, obviously, was a different situation, and there you don't look as good. So it all depends on what's around you. And if the Giants look to move on something like that, and now they have a Vikings expectation, but they get a Jets result, because the team is not as good.
So that's reverse Saquon.
Yeah. In a way, right? Exactly. If Saquon would have stayed and didn't perform, obviously, like he is, with a stronger line and a stronger team, yes, it's exactly right. I mean, you do have to build. I always said this, I'm a lacrosse guy, but football is the ultimate team sport. It really is, because there are so many components. There's important components, the quarterback being obviously the most important position. It's like, if you don't have that, you're never winning. But you have to have defense. You have to have special teams. You have to have, every factor combines to make a difference in a game. And even in close games, you see it comes down to the littlest of things. And you have 55-man roster with, where everybody actually can be capable of making a play for the team to have success. There's no other sport that's like that. That depends on that many people, if you think about it.
Correct.
So what you're saying, Scott, taking what Steven's saying to you, Scott, that's why those extra picks in the second, third, and fourth round can be valuable, because you can get an inside linebacker, you can get a guard, and the idea of getting a guard in the third round that can start for 4 years at $1 million a year, so you don't have to pay Runyon $10 million.
Correct. Well, but the thing about it is you have to approach it too. This is why they're going later in the draft, is the fact that there might not be quick return, but 2, 3, 4 years into it, like we did in San Fran and we did in Seattle, now you're building a hell of a roster with depth. Hell of a roster.
All right, so here's some more quarterbacks. There's actually some interesting ones, and I'll let you guys discuss them. How about Trey Lance? He's 24 years old, third pick in the draft, free agent.
In my opinion, there's something not right with him. Something I know he's been in a couple tough situations. I know he got picked where he got picked, which is way too high, and that's not his fault at all. I don't know about the self-confidence he has in himself in the position. I just watched the preseason stuff. I watched him when he was, in San Fran, and it was just like it's like almost like he's scared, and I hate to say that because I'm sure he's not, but just from an outside point, personnel wise, looking at him, that's a project, big time project.
Marcus Mariota, he's still only 31. Great character, high leader, a lot of qualities.
Good backup.
Andy Dalton.
Big Red. He as a football player,
yeah.
you really love the fact that he's smart. He's like Colt McCoy, who we had in Washington. He's a solid backup, get you through 2 or 3 games, but he's not a starter. I mean,
all right.
These are guys, you're mentioning guys that I think are capable guys, but only in a situation where they're surrounded by really, really good team and roster, and then they can maybe get you some success. If you're expecting them to come into a situation where something they have to kind of carry the load, and they're just not those type of guys. I don't think the Giants need a Jaden Daniels type guy. He's a guy that, well, we'd see, maybe if their team ends up not as strong next year, maybe they lose some guys, then you see what he's got to do. But he seems like a guy that has a temperament to carry lesser guys to a higher level. And, that's what the Giants need. They need somebody like that who can maybe carry the load that for a few years while other pieces are maybe getting built, and then they can become stronger.
Let me throw a name out, right? Would you trade a 1 and a 2 for J.J. McCarthy? Vikings re-sign Darnold. They get a 1 and a 2. Would you just trade a third pick to the Vikings? And if you're the Vikings, you take third pick for J.J. McCarthy?
I wouldn't.
I know the Giants liked him, but is he that kind? If he was that kind of guy, why wouldn't he be ahead of Donald already?
Well, he got hurt, which is not his fault,
right?
But I'm with you. He, I mean, you watch a college tape and you talk to people that I know that were around him. They love him as a person. They said, but athletically, arm strength, movement skills, mobility. It's all average. I mean, it's just, again, what we're talking about, he'll be good like Matt Hasselbeck was when we took him in the 5th in Green Bay and traded for him in Seattle, because we had so much talent around him. And we had a damn good defense and damn good special teams that we won more than we lost. But it wasn't because of him. We had Sean Alexander, who was the MVP of the league that 1 year. He scored like 22 touchdowns or something. I don't know what it was, but it's incredible. But it wasn't because of that. Now, if you can identify a franchise guy, if you feel as a franchise guy, you're going to be 50-50 at best.
What's
Scott,
the franchise?
Do you think that Sanders or Ward are that kind of caliber, potentially like a Jaden Daniels type kid?
Nope. I did Jaden 3 years in a row for agents. And, it all started when he was at ASU. And of course, he transferred to LSU. And I gave him a 5th-round grade 3 years ago. I gave him a 3rd-round grade 2 years ago. And I gave him a 1st-round grade last year. We saw improvement.
Ooh, he got bounced.
What happened? What happened? Hold up.
There he is.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
The only knock on Jaden was the size. He's really skinny. He took a
Yeah.
lot of hits, in college, but he never got hurt. So it's a unique dynamic with him. Um, if anybody knew he was going to be what he was this year, he'd been the first pick. He'd been the first pick overall. No doubt about it. Hindsight's 2020, of course, but I don't see the two guys this year. I like Cam. But honestly, I think he's more like a 3rd-round guy. I mean, I don't see him coming in being a starter. Now he had a heck of a year, don't get me wrong, and they had a pretty good team down in Miami, pretty damn good team. CU with Sanders, the old line was pathetic, and the running game was just average at best. So he had to try to make plays all the time. Now he had a really good receiver, don't get me wrong, a couple pretty damn good receivers, but I wish I knew Dion better than I do, just to know how his son's wired. Because Dion was a really good player. We played against him all the time, and he was always lights out on Sundays. And he had scored touchdowns, returning the ball, interceptions, catching the ball as a receiver. I think, and Peter might be able to answer this better than I can. I think the thing about Sanders, which is really cool, I think he's wired right. I think he's ready for the pro game, but does that translate over to production? You know, it's a hard thing. You'd have to sit with him and really get to him and see if the coaches thought, about because he's got a strong enough arm, he's got enough size. I've stood next to him, and so I've seen it. And the ball comes out, and I think he makes more good plays than bad plays, but also he's going to be a little bit like Daniel from the standpoint, Jones from the standpoint, he's an okay athlete, but not a real good athlete. If that
Which
makes
is
sense.
which is ironic because his dad might have been the best athlete of his generation. And then Stephen,
100%.
if you draft Shedeur Sanders, knowing your brethren in the metropolitan New York area, every time the Giants lose, what are they going to be saying?
Yeah, I mean, it is a tough situation. I mean, listen,
Bring on
that's
Dion, right? Bring on,
you know,
bring on
yeah,
Dion.
yeah. I mean, that they could. That's definitely probably in some people's minds. But I think listen, I think the owner showed that he's going to stick with the coach, and I think he's been a quarterback guy, Dable, right? So maybe he can help this kid, really progress. And I'm hoping for Sanders. I'm hoping for Sanders, and I'm hoping for some chemistry with Dable and him, and that they can then improve on the record, maybe get other pieces and start to build something going forward. That they're going to need to have some sort of success, because I think they're under a microscope after what happened at the end of the year there. But
Hey, Scott, so here's something for you. Everybody was complaining, the Giants won those 2 games. They won the 2 games. They lose the first pick. Reality is they could go quarterback, receiver. Pass rusher, receiver, and then they get the first quarterback anyways.
Well, I think Sanders is going to go pretty damn quick, pretty quick.
But
If you
but it
want
could
him,
go.
if you want him, you got to take him at 3. You can't futz around, because the top 6 teams need quarterbacks.
But that's what I'm
So,
saying though is everybody was complaining you win those games and then you're out of the first pick, but they could still wind up with the quarterback there because it could go pass rusher, receiver,
oh yeah,
quarterback.
yeah. I thought you meant with them picking. I'm
No,
sorry.
no.
Yeah, the first 2 picks. Yeah, I think I think I'm not sure about Tennessee, because they got their young guys still. I know they're mad at them, but if they took them in the first, I mean, there's something there.
No,
Apparently.
they don't think you play.
Okay, well, the thing is, if they're not taking a quarterback, somebody's going to move up to take a quarterback. I promise you. Somebody will jump up there and take the quarterback. If they like them, and every team's different, every philosophy's different. But if you need one, you got the owner sitting next to you in draft meetings saying, we have no quarterback. We
All right,
can't
so
win without a quarterback.
So then your job then, if you're New England or Tennessee, is to create demand for that pick.
100%.
And ideally, you would like it to be the Giants at 3, because then, okay, you could trade down and still get whether it's the pass rusher or the receiver.
Correct.
And you get the booty of draft picks with it. So
Correct.
That's what we're going to see, a bunch of poker playing for the next 4 months.
There's not, in my opinion, there's not one quarterback in this draft I'd sell my soul for. Not one. Last year there were a couple. Every year there's usually a couple. My first year when I was in San Fran, we had the first pick. And there wasn't ended up being Aaron Rodgers should have been it, but I didn't take him. But there wasn't a guy you just stood on the table for said, listen, he's going to change our organization. He's going to change us for the next 10 to 15 years.
So it came down to then Aaron and Alex. And how hard was that decision? And even with hindsight, would you do it again? And would Aaron have been Aaron had you taken him at 1?
No, it came down to, at the time, Aaron was much more mature as a quarterback. He played with Tedford, he played in some pro style offenses and all that at Cal. Alex is at Utah with Urban Meyer, always in the gun, always run around, and he was 20 years old. And it was all said and done. I just saw more upside as not just a football player, but as a teammate, as a leader, and as a person in Alex. Now, maybe I was wrong. I would not have changed the pick today. I wouldn't have. I know Aaron's had a phenomenal career. He's a first ballot. I get all that. But I took the football player that I knew we had a bad team. That's why we had the first pick. And I wanted to start building character and leadership and toughness on the team.
So if Aaron, maybe people did him a favor by letting him go 22, 23 to Green Bay. He gets humbled. He sits behind Favre for 2 years. Are the Giant fans, if they take Shador, Stephen, are the Giant fans going to sit there and give him the ability to sit for a year, or are they going to clamor for him? You need to play him, even if you sign it.
They're going to want him playing. I can't see them picking him 3 and then not playing him. They're going to want him right in there.
Hey, Peter, Giants fans. They're going to want him out there week 1.
Right.
Your sample size is right here. Right. That's what Stephen is, right?
But that's an easy one. That one, they're going to want him in there, and I don't know that they really have a choice. Who's going to be behind? Who's going to be ahead of him?
Correct.
They don't really have that much. It's not like they have like a star quarterback and they drafted, another quarterback and say, like the Rodgers and Jordan Love thing where they get Love and they're like, all right, learn from him for a little bit. They're not in that situation. This is like,
yep.
I'm amazed. The other thing I'm amazed about when you think the Super Bowl with the Eagles and the Chiefs is they're able to build, and I don't know if, within the organization, there's just a steadiness that they always seem to find these no-name guys that can produce. Let's face it, that's the thing about finding talent. Can you get a guy that can outperform what everybody thinks he can do? And they seem to find more of these guys than anybody, in the league. They constantly have reloaded with talent, and all these guys are strong. On the Kansas City defense, I think Kansas City doesn't get credited enough for what their defense does for their team. They talk about Mahomes and all of that, but it seems more often than not the defense shuts the door. Buffalo, literally, they complain about the refs and everything else, but bottom line, you couldn't get 2 inches. You couldn't get 2 inches when you needed to get it, and it looked hard. You could feel it through the TV, like, wow, that's going to be really hard to get this 6 inches. Where normally you think that guy just blows it over. And they just really make you feel like I think Kansas City's, the way they built their team, they just have stability, it seems like.
So how does how does that come about, Scott? What creates that stability?
Well, I always use the example of Pittsburgh. It's consistency. It's staying loyal, understanding there's good and bad days, good and bad weeks, good and bad months, good and bad years. But you know what? If you start building the culture and the players feel it, they understand, listen, okay, we don't have to be the best of the best of the best. We just have to be good. And as long as we hang together, it's a family. It's a team. And they'll fight and fight and fight, and people talk about Pittsburgh all the time the last couple of years, like they're not going to win. They're not going to win. Tom, how's he going to win? And every year they go to they're above 500. And it's because of just the culture that's built and the confidence that's built. The players feel it in the locker room, Peter, which you'll be talk about better than I can. But the players feel it in the building. They're in the locker room. They be who they want to be and how they want to be it. They understand when they step on that field for practice or game day, they got an obligation to the organization and to the coaches, and that's why a lot of these new owners, they think change is good. Change is good. We got to keep the fans happy because we got to sell tickets. And I got to bring a new coach in here now. The players are honestly, as you're well aware, Peter, they're kids in a grown man's body, most of them mentally. And the more change you throw at them, the more they're confused, and they're trying to, I mean, I went 5 years in San Fran with 5 new offense coordinators for Alex Smith, who had to go quarterback 101 coming out of college because he never played under center. He never, never called a huddle. It was all called from the sideline. Then all of a sudden, you can 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 years in a row, a different voice in his ear. That's tough on these young guys. I don't care how smart you are; it's just tough. You have to have consistency, which I respect about Mara doing with Joe and the head coach. Is what he's showing some loyalty. He's showing some respect, and who knows how it works out. Hopefully, it works out well. Hopefully, but at least the players know exactly when they come to training camp, when they do their OTAs, whatever, they know what they're walking into. There's a comfort level that says, okay, we're starting the preseason. Boom, here we go. We know what the coach expects. We know it's the same guy telling us what he expects, and and that gives them. I always say this about football players: it's much better. The athletes that are good football players, they react more than think because they just know the feeling. They understand what's expected of them.
They play fast.
Well, but they know what's expected of them. So even mentally, when you're coming in training camp, if you got a new head coach, you got new coordinators, you got whatever, you got a new GM, all that stuff. It's like we don't know what to expect. We're just going to be, flying by it right now and to see if we can figure it out.
All right, so the last 15 minutes, Super Bowl predictions, and why?
Well, I'm saying KC because of the quarterback. what else can you say? I think honestly, I think it'd be a hell of a game. What Saquon's done in that old line, they'll be able to control the clock some for sure. For sure. I think it's going to be really close towards the end. And the dang quarterback for KC, he just got the it. And the thing about it too is the kicker for KC is really, really good.
And in a big game that matters, Steven, what are your thoughts?
I'm gonna take the Eagles because they're gonna get that half yard that the Bills couldn't get. I think they'll dig deep enough to, on those short yardage plays, and there seemed to be in that Bills game, there seemed to be, a dozen of them, and every one of them, like I said, looked tough sledding for Buffalo. But I think Philadelphia really has the confidence that they can blow you off the line when they need to, and I think that's like a psychological thing. I think anytime you're getting against the Eagles and it ends up, 3rd and 1 or, a 4th down and anywhere less than a yard or like that, they almost take pride in the fact that we don't care. We are lining this up like this and you're not stopping us. And I think that sends a message sometimes to teams. So I think they're going to be able to control the clock. They're going to be able to make some big plays. They have weapons as receivers, and they obviously have Saquon. And I think when they get into those short yardage plays, they'll be able to push Kansas City back where Buffalo couldn't do it.
Football is really the only sport. I find it very interesting. Obviously, been a part of it for 30 whatever years, but you play all these games for home field advantage, and the home field advantage is advantage for a Buffalo because they're playing the cold weather, or Detroit sort of lost that because they're playing in a dome. Minnesota plays a dome, so you have this advantage. Kansas City would love to take a team on in the cold. Then all of a sudden you play the Super Bowl in a dome or in a warm weather city, and it changes everything. You play these playoff games where the home field matters. Now you go to play a neutral site, and I think that Kansas City's been able to benefit from that because of the quarterback the last few years.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I said, I think it's going to be a hell of a game. I think it's going to be low scoring, and it's going to come down to the last 2 minutes. And I just, I don't want KC to win, although I love Andy Reid. He's a good friend. But it's time for someone else to win. But I just can't go against the quarterback, not when it's close, in my opinion, in the fourth quarter. I can't do it.
All right, so what does that do if Kansas City wins? What does that do to the legacy of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? Mahomes probably already a Hall of Famer, but does that put him up now in the category of GOAT?
No, not yet. No, Tom Brady. No, not yet. No, he's on his way, and he's still young.
So who are the top 5 quarterbacks of all time then? Is Mahomes in it?
Yes.
Steven?
It's unquestionable. He's like guy's in half his career, and he's already been in 7 or 8 AFC Championship games, won 4 Super Bowls, lost another one. I mean, this guy is just he's on a tear like nobody's ever seen. So yeah, I guess you got to reserve the GOAT because he hasn't maybe played his full resume yet. But it's hard to argue that if he even cuts back 50% of what he's doing now, he's going to be in that range. And Reed, I think you got to put him kind of up there with like a Belichick. I do think you have to do it. I mean, this guy has proven he's gotten to the Super Bowl with multiple teams. Now he's built something in Kansas City that, is you could argue better than any dynasty ever in, at least since Super Bowls have happened. He's been, all of these championship games, and, it is very Belichick-like in that way. So, I think he's certainly right up there.
Yeah.
So if Belichick is the GOAT, Lombardi too?
That's before my time. I've seen
Could Lombardi coach today, or would he be fired after having maybe not winning one title?
He'd be fired in these new generation of kids. They wouldn't be able to adjust to him.
Right, they couldn't handle him.
No,
come on.
No, he'd probably be in prison for killing a couple of them.
Right.
But I do think that if Reed wins and he gets to go in that top 5 category, I did a really scientific thing here. I in Chat GPT, I said, who are the best quarterbacks of all time? And according to the internet, Brady, Montana, Peyton, Johnny Unitas, Dan Marino, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I guess it's what you waited on, because look, there's not to argue with that Marino just as a pure quarterback and passer. I mean, you could argue he's the best of all of them. Correct. But he just didn't have the full. That's why I say it's the team game. Never really fully had the defenses that maybe could get him over the top. They just couldn't, they couldn't beat those Buffalo teams, and there were other, they lost to the 49ers that time in the Super Bowl, but you could argue he was one of my favorites. In fact, he was my favorite, Dan Marino, because that quick release, it was amazing. But it is a team. They count trophies now. They want rings.
Correct. The thing that's funny about you saying that is my brother played in the NFL for 4 years, and he played against Aikmans, Elways, all them cats, first round players. And he told me that he's a safety. And he said the best quarterback he ever played against live was Marino. He said that ball would come out so quick and it was on a line. And he said we couldn't stop him. We couldn't stop him.
When you play against, when you talk to, not play against, when you talk to the great defensive players and they say, what is it like to play against, whether it's Brady or Marino or whoever, he goes, when they throw the ball, you're like, damn, must be completed because why else would he have thrown the ball?
I'll never forget with Troy Aikman. My dad was with the Raiders for a long time, of course, and they were in Oxnard for training camp. And they'd scrimmage the Cowboys. The Raiders and Cowboys would scrimmage. And Jerry Jones and Al Davis were like good buddies, so they would always practice. And my dad said they went 2 days against Aikman, and not one time the ball hit the ground. Not one frickin' time.
Well, that's impressive. All right. So, Steven, do you know where Al Davis's first coaching job was?
Al Davis's first coaching job? No.
What about you, Scott? Do you know?
Syracuse.
No.
Syracuse. No.
That was number 2.
It was back east.
That's right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Steven, this is
No
right
idea.
Adelphi University.
No way.
Yes. Yes.
He was coaching football? They had a football
Yes.
team? I didn't even know they had a football team.
Yes. He was coaching football. I think he coached. Let me look it up right now. Because he would always tell me, because we would always talk about it. And in 1950, the team had some success or something. And he would always allow them to come to one away game with the Raiders. Shortly after graduating from Syracuse University, Davis was appointed the line coach for Adelphi football team.
Wow.
Served in a role for 2 seasons, 1950 to 1951.
I didn't
In
even know
recognition of his contributions, Adelphi inducted Al Davis into the Athletics Hall of Fame in 1992.
That's incredible.
How about
incredible.
that?
That's a fun fact. Not a lot of people would ever know that. They probably haven't had football since the 60s.
I know that they had it in the early 70s because Doc Doherty, I remember him coming to Cortland when I was a kid, and he, as an assistant football coach, they played SUNY Cortland. I do know that.
Wow. That is a fun fact.
All right, so if that's the case, then so I guess I get to break the tie since you guys are all, and I think that every time I pick with my brain, the other team wins, and every time I pick with my heart, the other team wins. So
you got both sides covered then. Then you're winning either way.
Or whoever, yeah. So whoever I pick go the other way. But I think it's Philadelphia's year. I really do. I think it's their year, and I think that has something to do with it. They don't have the quarterback Kansas yet, but their defensive line, they're a bunch of dudes, and they rotate those guys, and they come in waves. And
I got a question for you. If they win and Saquon has a good game, is this the greatest season a running back has ever had in football?
What do you mean a good game? Are you talking about Super Bowl MVP?
Yeah. 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 I mean, if he doesn't get the MVP, if he has a game where he, rushes 100 yards, makes a touchdown, they win the Super Bowl, is that the greatest season a running back has ever had?
I personally really don't think so. I think what Jim Brown used to do with the limited games, I think what Terrell Davis did with the Broncos that year, I mean, it's in the top 5 no matter what. I mean, and the thing about it that I respect so much is, and I was watching this morning on my internet about the way when Sirianni came over and said, listen, you're 16 yards away, whatever it was, from your career, single game record. And he's like, nah, let the young guys eat, and then him not, going for, the Russian championship, which I get it. And it's going to happen again and again, because now we got 17 games. Now we're going to have 18 games. I think there has to be like an asterisk next to it. because I mean, we're talking about guys who are doing it in 16 games or guys who are doing it in 14 games.
But what you're saying, Stephen, is 2,000 yards rushing, Super Bowl MVP or close to it. So it's the totality of it. It's not like just
Yeah.
Barry Sanders 2,100 yards or
Yeah.
Eric Dickerson when he had the great
I
year.
mean, he
but
just seems like it's like a dream season for him. I could see him, that's why I'm rooting for the Eagles. I could see it being a walk-off for Saquon, and he just,
because arguably the greatest season ever was, no matter what anybody says, and certainly history is going to judge it differently, was O.J. Simpson rushing for 2,000 yards in 14 games.
Correct.
that is pretty amazing.
I mean, that's just stupid.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, the thing with Philly, of course, we've already talked about the O-line. I mean, it's an excellent O-line. And, nowadays, a lot of these teams are throw to run. They run to throw.
Yeah.
Which I respect because it goes back to old school football, but that's good by then. They know what they have, and it's too bad what happened to the Giants with him leaving there and doing what he's doing, because I'm sure they all like him. They're all pulling for him, but not like this, like holy smokes, he's got a chance. And he's a legit MVP candidate. He's not going to get it, but he's legit. I mean, he's had a hell of a year. I mean, and he shows up in big games, and they run the crud out of him, and he just keeps pounding the rock. And
the one thing I'll say about Scott picked, he says the Chiefs because of Mahomes and the quarterback. The one thing that terrifies me of picking the Eagles is the fact that Andy Reid, you give him time, he's going to prepare for a game. That I wouldn't want to against him preparing for that one game scenario.
Correct.
So Adam, we have a tie here. Scott's picked the Chiefs. Steven's picked the Eagles. Whatever I pick goes the other way. You got to break the tie.
Chiefs all day long. Checo healthy, like with the speed. Added D-Hop and Kelsey. Like they got 2 weeks to prepare and they all healthy. Ain't no fucking way. I just don't see it.
Adam, you're a smart guy, my man.
Yeah. Andy, like, if you look at the game last week, when he motioned the 2 guys over to see if they was in man or not, and ran the running back, it was all over routes, and the running back ran to the flat, the one he scored on. Like, that's scheming like a motherfucker. There's no way that backer is gonna be able to make that play. No way. No way.
And so that's just out coaching.
I love Andy Reid. To me, he's probably the best coach. I have Andy Reid like Bill. Might be a little bit better than Bill because he calling the plays. It's different from calling the plays and doing special team or defense. Offensive side of the ball is the hardest part of
All
the
right, so
game.
explain the play. Explain why what you noticed in that play that us neophytes do not understand what you're talking about. Because
All right,
when
so
they
it was
motioned the
tripped.
two
It was
guys, right?
First of all, it was double. It was dub. I mean, it was 2x2. They motioned. No, actually, it was 3x1. Sorry, they motioned the 2 guys over to see if they're in man or not. And as you can see on that play, both of them running over there. The corner came up. That means I got him. The other 2 dudes went in and out. Everybody ran the over route. That leaves the running back and the linebacker 1-on-1. If I'm running at you and this goddamn running back is real fast, there's no way that he's going to be able to make that play.
It's all right. So if you're the defense coordinator, you know it's coming. What do? Do you switch out? You can out of man to man, or what's the way to defend that?
The backer got to come up like he almost at the defensive end, and they got the other backer. They got an inside out. So if he go right, you got him. If he go left, I got him. But you can't play that from a normal depth because you got to be able to get through the mesh.
Which he didn't get through. He kind of got bumped off in the traffic with his own guys when he tried to get out there. That's why he got a bad angle and the guy outran him.
Henry had a couple plays that he schemed in that game. I love his red zone package though, because he give Mahomes like 3-4 options.
So right, Mahomes has got three different options. It's almost like a triple option, but but you got the run pass,
Yep.
and he's athletic enough that it makes it difficult, right?
Yes, he is.
So
And
how do you
if
stop?
people, Brady with Mahomes. Brady was nowhere near as good as Mahomes.
Because your phone stinks, by the way.
I know, but Brady is nowhere near as good as Mahomes was at this time of his career.
Because of the athleticism, the lack of athleticism.
Yeah, I'm saying brain wise he was there, but as far as athleticism and the throws that this boy make, oh hell no,
What about
nah.
Justin Fields? Where do you come down on Justin Fields?
Uh, what do you mean? What I come down? What is your question? Like that's kind of like a throw up question.
What
What
kind
do you
of
say?
is he an elite quarterback, top 5 quarterback, top 10 quarterback? Do you expect him just don't screw the game up, be a game manager? But he's been using it in the playoffs. He's been using his feet, and that's been making a difference.
Um,
Nah, Peter. You said Justin Fields.
said
I
Justin
didn't mean
Fields,
Justin.
bro.
I meant Hurts. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Oh, I'm like, what the fuck?
yeah. I'm sorry.
Hurst is good. Like it's a good game. It's gonna be a good game. But you gotta realize, Eagles got the best offensive line in the NFL. So if they can, Kansas City can match that intensity up front. I ain't even talking about the back end because obviously McDuff would be on AJ. I think that's a good matchup. But like Eagles don't really have none that really scares me when it comes to receiving wise. Like if you stop the run, if Kansas City get up, like do you think the Eagles can throw the ball to get back in the game? Fuck no.
They got the two
Can't what happens?
receivers. You don't like those two receivers?
I'm saying that AJ is good. He's decent. Like he's a prima
AJ's
donna
real
though.
good.
But like
And,
they don't got what Kansas City got when it comes to wide receiver or tight end because they help.
all right. So what's the score then?
Score? Ah,
Yeah.
oh, the vice president in town. They got the road blocked off. Um,
Where are you in Cincinnati?
yeah, 24-17. Chiefs.
There we go. All right, boys. Time to wrap it up. Hey, I'll tell you,
Smelly.
Adam. I'll tell you something. You don't want to cover Steven in lacrosse, though. He's a gazelle. He runs all day.
Man, I'll fuck Steve up.
Yeah, you know what? Nobody ever wanted to cover me, and I wasn't out there taking guys. I only take guys on my own terms.
Man, I will fuck Steve up.
When they turn their head, I go the other way, and then I'm over here, then I'm over there. I am an annoying guy to cover. I never stop moving. They say, "Won't you stop moving?" I said, "No, I can't stop moving because once you make that mistake, I'm going to make you pay." But I got to play with good guys. That's the thing, Scott. I was always better when I was around good guys. When I'm around good guys, I could do damage. When I'm not around good guys, like we played in Florida a few weeks ago, Peter looked like a stud at the 60 and over. You had to see him running around. He looked like a 35-year-old running in 60-year-olds. They said, "Who is this guy? Check his birth certificate."
Hey, I can run at that level. They thought I was cheating, Scott.
They wanted his birth certificate. They said this guy can't be 60. Look how he's running around.
All right, boys. Hey, let's do this again next Friday for one last before we go to the Super Bowl. All right.
Enjoy the game. Thank you, guys.
Take care, fellas.
Later.